The horror genre is something I've become profoundly more interested in over the last year. About 6 months ago, I took a deep look into the different mediums of horror, and how each of them work in different ways. By the end of the project, I ended up wondering what exactly took me so long to finally get around to fully enjoying the genre. Then it hit me. Most of my exposure to horror growing up was garbage like this, and this, and this, and... oh god. Bad YouTube Kids content had effectively killed my interest in a whole genre by overshadowing the better, more obscure media. In the past, it's even been able to affect public opinion on other viral, non-horror games, and I don't think it's just me. Children's horror used to be scary, or at least made an attempt to be. Writing horror for kids is this constant tug of war. You want to make something scary, but you also don't want young Timothy having nightmares and failing school. It forces the author to be more creative to make up for the lack of blood and gore, and oftentimes, it leads to something more frightening because of it. Today it seems more like an attempt to be marketable, to appeal to as many kids as possible in hopes of being spread to make a quick buck. Obviously this hasn't ruined the horror genre as a whole, only seeming to really affect horror games, and even then you can always go back to older titles. But it has impacted the discussion of them. In 2014, the landscape of indie horror was changed forever with the release and subsequent explosion of the FNAF games. While it wasn't the first horror game to go viral on YouTube, the success of the format and marketability of the characters would inspire others to try a similar trick. Now it seems every time I check Twitter, FNAF or some other mascot horror game is always on trending, and videos about the subject are popping up everywhere. You should know you're technically watching one right now. But that's just what I picked up on myself. My own personal experience is but a fraction of the potential damage YouTube Kids can cause to the perception of a franchise. So today, I'll be your guide as we once again enter the harsh landscape of YouTube Kids. Please remain seated and remember to wear your hazmat suits at all times. But first, a short history lesson. Horror games have always been an integral part of the Let's Player ecosystem, going all the way back to the beginning of the genre. While all sorts of games were entertaining to watch, there was an added level of engagement given to people who played horror games, where we could watch and see their unfiltered emotions as they navigate the problems presented by the game. PewDiePie would mark the beginning of his rise with his Let's Plays of Amnesia, a horror game known for its lack of player power. Fans were infatuated by Felix's outbursts of fear, which made for some pretty entertaining content. It was a mutually beneficial system. The Let's Players would make money off of video views, and the game developers would make money from game sales thanks to the free advertising. This trend only continued with Slender, and would be taken to a whole other level by FNAF. The YouTube success of FNAF led to way more than just Let's Plays. With all the theories, songs, and fan animations, it seems like an entire fan base arose overnight. And those SFM fan animations seem to have been an earlier version of what the children's content would eventually become. I would know, childhood me loved this shit, but the bottom line is that these were made by fans for fans. A stark difference from the soulless content farms that would eventually take over. The games inspired by FNAF had a similar growth pattern. YouTube Let's Players would bring the game into the spotlight, and the games would go on to see massive growth. And as more and more of these games came out, it became even more important to find a label for them, leading to the term Mascot Horror. Mascot Horror as a search term only started popping up around January of this year. It was around beforehand, but it's really come to prominence in recent times, as more of these games keep popping up. And it's great to finally have a word to describe this particular subgenre. Every mascot horror game tends to follow the same formula. Our main character goes to a place, and that place contains a mascot or mascots, often haunted by some sort of ghost, with the mascot characters then used to sell merchandise. In recent times, Mascot Horror also seems to follow a trend of releasing in chapters. Chaptered releases allow you to sell each game in parts, letting the budget build from one chapter to another. I'm personally not a fan of this business practice because it's splitting the game into multiple chunks, they can vary in quality, and it's overall a less cohesive experience. But the entire genre is a double-edged sword. Mascot horror games are characterized by their small dev teams and little to no budget, On one hand, it's a good thing that small indie devs can make these games and become successful. On the other hand, a lot of Mascot Horror games aren't all that great, with there being so many tropes followed that, after a certain point, different games start to blend together, both figuratively and literally. The true terror of Mascot Horror doesn't come from the games themselves, but what other people choose to do with these characters. As you'd guess from how they're designed, it's common for the mascots to be taken out of their original contexts and forced into these videos, even when the actual topic has little to do with them. From the perspective of an animation channel, it makes sense to use as many marketable characters as possible, as it increases the chance of a potential viewer clicking the thumbnail after recognizing one or more of the characters, as well as tag surfing and the like. It carries all the weight of a collab without actually needing to collaborate with anyone. And the icons in these videos aren't just from games. Creepypastas, the SCP Foundation, and the monsters of Trevor Henderson have all been through this exact same phenomenon, consumed into the endless void of the algorithm. Welcome to the bottom of the barrel. I hope you enjoy your stay. This is where all the YouTube Kids videos with these marketable characters come from. Gone are the days of fan creations being made from passion. It's time for vapid corporate machines to take center stage. And it's safe to say the format's been optimized since we've last seen it. But first, since our characters here were taken from all sorts of different backgrounds, let's get to know our rogues gallery, the characters that are forever tainted by the depravity of YouTube Kids. Of course there's Freddy in the gang, but we already know them. Then there's Bendy and friends, characters taken from popular horror game Bendy and the Ink Machine. Baldy from Baldy's Basics, the Neighbor from Hello Neighbor, and in recent times, the Poppy Playtime, Ban Ban, and Rainbow Friends casts. Then, one level lower than the Mascot Horror crew, we have the mobile characters. After seeing the success of Hello Neighbor, game company Z&K Global decided to make their own mobile version called Scary Teacher 3D. And while it was never quite as popular in the mainstream, in the world of YouTube Kids, it was everywhere. Arguably even more popular than the game that inspired it. Granny is yet another of these house-breaking games, released a few months later. Lastly, there's the killer from Ice Scream, yet again another game in the same style. Lastly, we have the bottom tier, characters barely connected to Mascot Horror at all. Here we have Siren Head, one of the horrifying creations of Trevor Henderson, the doll from Squid Game, and Piggy, from the Roblox game inspired by Granny and Peppa Pig. Then, just to capture the Elsagate crowd, we have Spider-Man, fresh out of getting stabbed with a needle. Or two. Not every character appears in all these videos at a time, and more popular characters are naturally more likely to be used. But I think this chart gives us a decent enough look into the ecosystem. To be honest, anything goes. The videos can range from weird comedic animated skits like this. Oh no, Scary Teacher is dead. This is so sad. To weird mukbang animations with sound effects that make me deeply uncomfortable. ASMR as a video format has only gotten more popular over time, and if there's anything the TikTok kids like, it's satisfying videos, which I guess this counts as. These modern children's videos have foregone any sort of relatability. They aren't even pretending to be fans of the games at this point, only using the characters for business purposes. Poppy Playtime developers Mob Entertainment have actually used this to their advantage. They got their start as Enchanted Mob, a YouTube channel that makes animated FNAF videos in the same voxelized style as Minecraft. And by including Huggy Wuggy in these mashup animations, they actually might have helped Poppy Playtime become more closely connected to other popular games. An interesting strategy to ensure the longevity of a series. As you watch more of these videos, something you'll notice is that these situations aren't specifically tied to the horror genre, or even have anything to do with it. I think a big part of the enjoyment for the kids watching these videos is seeing the horror characters out of their original horror context. I think it all goes back to Let's Plays. A major reason for their popularity was because an amount of the viewers were too scared to play the games themselves, so they'd instead experience it vicariously through YouTubers. That, or these really are just getting views because popular thing, that's entirely possible. I think it's worthy to note that an amount of these videos can properly toe the line of ironic humor. Even people above the age of 5 can find Siren Head and Granny stealing Scary Teacher's Ferrari to be entertaining, just for completely different reasons. It doesn't help that a lot of these horror games weren't all that scary in the first place. Scary Teacher? Really? The game was so unscary they had to add the word into the title of the game. And even then, it still fails in that department. But I do genuinely find it unfortunate that I'll never be able to take these terrifying ideas like Siren Head seriously. Because every time I see it, I can't help but think back to this. Or the poorly edited fake encounters. But as I briefly mentioned way earlier on, YouTube Kids didn't just impact horror. This is the bottom of the barrel, but we have yet to enter the true abyss. Here we have the worst thing that can happen to your project when it's taken by not just YouTube Kids, but the internet at large. It's stretched to the point where it's no longer even resembling the original game. Among Us was a decent party game, and was one of the main pillars of entertainment during the pandemic. But if you look at it today, it might be hard to look past the vast ocean of memes. While the game was first released in 2018 to little fanfare, the isolation of the lockdowns brought the game to all new heights, not just for indie games, but for gaming as a whole. But unfortunately, it flew too close to the sun.
Stop posting about Among Us! I'm tired of seeing it! My friends on TikTok send me memes, on Discord it's fucking me.
Before the end of 2020, everyone knew about Among Us, and that allowed everyone to be in with the memes, allowing them to become more widespread and annoying than memes have ever been before. As it turns out, when everyone online was pulling from the same pool of 5 Among Us memes, it got stale, fast. That same year saw the rise of another game cursed with the mark of death. 2020 was a year of great suffering, and there's nothing like a little nostalgia to help people get through the weeks. Friday Night Funkin' brought that tone of 2000's Newgrounds back for a few short months from late 2020 to mid 2021. But to many, it was more of a discovery than a rediscovery. Friday Night Funkin' hit the mainstream, and just like Among Us, it would blow up overnight. But what do these examples have to do with YouTube Kids? Well, it turns out that these games reach the criteria to become a character in these animations, the recognizability to a general YouTube audience. And Among Us and FNF got it worse than anything here. Friday Night Funkin' noticeably isn't a kids game, but the creative characters don't stop kids from getting attached. The YouTube Kids versions of these characters are in some of the most psychotic videos I've seen on this site. I'm talking baby boyfriend inside pregnant girlfriend mukbang, the kind of content that can cause longtime fans to reconsider. I think I might have accidentally awakened it. Elsagate. I'm gonna need to be a bit quieter for this next section. Elsagate is none other than the biggest YouTube Kids controversy to date. Around 2016, people started to notice unusual animations of Mickey Mouse, Elsa, Spider-Man, and the Joker appearing in videos with inappropriate themes, like giant needles, poop, and pregnancy, sometimes all at once. The backlash was heavy enough for YouTube to terminate hundreds of channels, including Toy Freaks, which had 8 million subscribers. They would also disable comments on child-oriented content, and demonetize millions of videos. The videos were characterized by, what else, but pre-existing characters appearing outside of their original contexts. And much like the videos today, they got tens of millions of views. Only time will tell if the modern incarnation will ever get as bad, but for now, it seems to at least be a step up from this. Oh no, I think it heard that. It seems this whole place is about to come crashing down. I need to do something, fast. And there's only one reliable way of getting YouTube to help me out of here. Oh no! Is that the scary thing? YouTube has to do something about this. Think of the children! Well, I'm glad that's over. This video isn't just about YouTube Kids channels. At the end of the day, they're just making what the viewers want to watch. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't completely tired of most Mascot Horror series, and whenever other schlock makes its way to YouTube Kids. I don't care about Rainbow Friends, I don't care about Ban Ban, or Poppy Playtime, or whatever other reskinned characters appear in the next one. And even if they were these technical marvels of fun, I'd never know because I'll never care to check. Just recently we saw the release of the FNAF movie, a PG-13 thriller that makes little to no attempt to make the film horrifying, instead following the series' general trend of getting less scary over time. 4 years earlier, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark released, a PG-13 horror film targeted at younger teens that actually has some mildly scary moments. The truth is, for every non-horrific horror property, there's another out there that makes a wholehearted attempt. When it comes to horror games, the modern trend seems to be low-poly, short but disturbing games, like Iron Lung or the Games by Puppet combo. And while the format isn't perfect, I'd rather celebrate these usually free indie horror games over the ones that use Mascot Horror. Not to mention, the kids channels aren't exactly interested in covering Scroll Stapler. I hope this video provided an interesting look at the journeys game characters can have on their own. The weird, unlicensed kind that keep me up at night. Why did they steal her Ferrari? Why did they? And even though these current videos are a lot less harmful than their 2017 counterparts, I still think they're more than worth talking about, just because they're weird. Anyways, I think there's a tear in my hazmat suit, so I'm probably gonna go get tested, and you probably should too, just in case. Bye!